how does it feel to be on your own with no direction home? And that shit hit me.
Talk about your experience with Naked News, which you did for 7 years.
Yeah. I just grew up in a household that didn't have the ability to talk openly about feelings or questions about development and body. And no, it's not the password to every single email I have. I'm not joking, it's not. Don't worry. The middle American viewership didn't want to see a naked woman crying on camera.
Welcome to another episode of Uncensored. Today we have the Laura Desiree with us today. She is a trailblazer in New York and internationally. She works in the realm of sex education, intimacy coordination, and erotic performance. And she has over a decade of experience redefining the landscape of adult content and advocacy. She is a certified intimacy coordinator, has worked with productions like Sanctum, ensuring that performers navigate intimate scenes with safety and authenticity. She has also worked on Naked News for 7 years. And beyond the screen, she does burlesque, cabaret. I mean, what has she not done? And we're going to get through all of that today. So welcome, Laura.
My goodness. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for tackling a bio that was way too long when I sent it to you.
Well, we're going to talk about all of it right here, right now.
Cool.
So I kind of want to start with some background so that people can really get to know you. You moved from Canada to the US.
Yeah.
And you started, you launched your performance career at some of like New York's high-end hotels and the Lower East Side. What was that move like for you?
My initial desire in moving to New York City, I was 18, so it was fresh out of high school where I had left in a blaze of glory. I was valedictorian. Like it was an enormous triumph to have survived high school to begin with. But I felt really inspired and motivated to pursue independent film. So I came to New York to go to the New York Film Academy, and I wanted to make psychosexual erotic thrillers. Those are my favorite films, right? I wanted to explore different depictions and presentations of sexual dynamics. I got to New York, I finished my program, and I very quickly fell in love with nightlife and forgot about the discipline that it takes to be any kind of an entrepreneur, any kind of a person with a dream. I just wanted to party. And I fell in love with the nightlife scene, ran out of money very quickly, which is what happens to so many of us as we learn that threshold. I became a personal assistant to a fashion mogul here. It was a very hard job. Devil Wears Prada, sure. It gives you an idea, but being available to someone 24/7, which I was, and I was freshly into my 20s, I said, I need something to balance the scales. I wonder now if maybe I was disciplining or punishing myself for the partying that happened. And I said, maybe I'll just become a personal assistant and I'll do really well and I'll be rewarded and I'll make good money. No, you feel your soul leave you. I got back into nightlife to balance the scales, find some freedom, and this is what led me to go-go dancing. This led me to burlesque. I ended up enrolling in the New York School of Burlesque and learning every possible gimmick, every possible lesson there is to learn in being that kind of an expressionist, right? Incorporating your natural sensuality, which includes your curiosity, the realms that you aren't an expert in, but you're curious about, and how to bring movement to that and how to enchant an audience. I fell in love with burlesque. It became the biggest part of my world, and I traveled internationally doing it. And had I not had the experience standing on a stage, taking off my clothes, connecting in a slow burn fashion, and what I mean is the eye contact to ensure you're making an impact, that confidence, that musicality, finding a combination of taking the audience's nervousness and fusing it and flooding it with your confidence. Had I not had that experience, I don't think I would be the person I am today. Because of course, when you permit your sexual curiosity, when you permit it to be something to explore, which burlesque helped me do, it opened up a whole world to me. And as you know from that terrifying biography, which I have spent years trying to condense into a paragraph, and I just can't do it. It's been a life dedicated to the erotic, my definition of it, my experience of it, but also witnessing others along that journey. Maybe I'm helping them sometimes. Maybe I'm a part of that journey sometimes. I'm fascinated by how a human can be elevated when you just permit a little bit of that sexual exploration within your own identity.
Yeah. Was burlesque really the inception of your draw towards the intimacy space then? Or did you always have sort of a natural inclination for it?
Well, I think the seed was planted much earlier. I've mentioned this in other conversations before, but I just grew up in a household that didn't have the ability to talk openly about feelings or questions about development and body. I mean, we never shamed in my household. We never shamed conversations around sex, but we didn't really comfortably talk about it. However, we did watch a lot of movies, and movies were never kept from me because of age gating, or, maybe me and my twin sister, maybe we weren't ready for something. No, my father was very open to us watching whatever we were curious about. So there's all this art in my upbringing. And I thought, wow, I'm so obsessed with the way these two performers are touching each other. And I love the feeling it's giving me because I'm excited by it. I'm aroused by it. And that's something that's so somatic. I remember being obsessed with it. So yeah, then when burlesque came about and I was suddenly moving my own body in this way, and I was seeing what the effect had on an audience, I said, yes, this is for me. And it absolutely led me into all of the work that I do in intimacy today.
Yeah. I would love to sort of like paint a picture for the audience. What does a Laura Desiree burlesque show feel like? What do you do? How do you stun the audience? How do you walk out on stage? The light, the outfit, the slow tease.
Yeah. Nowadays, it involves a lot of what I would say more hardcore presentations. I'm not afraid.
Tell me all about it.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of incorporating some of my own affinity for kink. I'm not afraid of presenting myself entirely nude. I'm not afraid of shaving my head on stage, piercing parts of my body on stage, all things that I've done, inserting things or retrieving things that are inside of me. Yeah. I've done all of that on stage. When it first started for me, though, I remember building my persona, and I would think so deeply about some of the MGM musicals, these classic films in saturated Technicolor. And I would think about the way that performers like the famous Sid Charisse would move on stage. And this was a fabulous performer who rarely ever spoke in film, but Sid Charisse moved her body so feline-like. And she would frame herself in a doorway and kind of wait for you to notice it, even though this is on film. Like, how does she know when I'm done looking at it? She decides. And so I remember studying that posture, that supreme confidence, that way that you can pull your chest before the rest of your body. And also that slowness. One of the big tells of someone who is lacking confidence and someone who is exuding confidence in a performance space is the time that they take to tell their story. I used to teach burlesque, and I remember telling students all the time, you have to slow it down. Not because it needs to be slow and boring, but because you need to show this audience that you are so confident to stand in this moment that you could stand there as long as you want. And you standing there saying, I am a pridefully sexual person, and I'm a pridefully irresistible being, that is powerful as hell. So I started incorporating a lot of those stops where maybe the music is really chaotic, maybe the music is really slow. You move between it and you find time to ground down and show that audience, I'm not afraid of being here right now. If someone's frantically moving, it's the same as in sex. If someone's frantically moving to the next part and they can't stop and just look at you, I start to doubt their confidence in the moment. If they can't just be and just let it be the moment. I say, okay, what are we running from?
Exactly.
What are we afraid of?
I really love that the way you described using time and slowing it down and really just being present in your body in that way. How did you develop that kind of confidence over time?
A lot of it is observing other people who have it and speaking with them candidly. A lot of confrontation of the things I'm afraid of. I grew up in a household with a parent my mother was very sick my whole childhood, and she died when I was 10. And there was this enormous, I guess it felt like a group effort by the adults in my life to stare me in the face and say, you are so strong, you're so invincible. And I didn't want to be anything but, because I feared, well, what if I did break down? What happens? So much of my life and my world was falling apart. If I start shattering, is the entire thing going to come undone? I don't know. So a lot of it was faking it. Or very early on, it was faking it. It was performing invincibility. And that can be a fabulous coping mechanism for people, but it's not sincere. So there is that coming to term with what's at play. And that did happen when I found myself living in New York City, away from my family in Toronto. You know, I'm this young person, and I have to supply that confidence myself. No one, when you reach a certain point, is going to, you know, a 10-year-old child, if a 10-year-old child is being really strong in the face of grief, you applaud them. But eventually, as we grow up, we don't find that impressive in people. We say, yeah, you're an adult, pull your bootstraps up. And so there's that moment when I found myself in my early 20s living in New York, and I thought, oh, shit, it's all on me. I gotta survive. I gotta do this. And, you know, I'm walking through Central Park one day, and I've got my iPod Shuffle in my ear. Whoa, the iPod Shuffle, there's a relic. And I'm listening to, this is so silly, I'm listening to Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling Stone, a classic anthem. And he's saying in these lyrics, how does it feel to be on your own with no direction home? And that shit hit me. I thought, yeah, if I were to start walking, trying to find my way back, I wouldn't know what direction to go in. Which way is Toronto? I don't know. I'm here. This is it, Laura. It's on you. What are you going to do with that? That's where the real confidence had to come in.
Yeah. That's really, really beautiful, inspiring, honestly. I would love to know sort of like, it sounds like a lot of this experience is so applicable to intimacy coordination, right?
Yeah.
How do you bring out that level of comfort in someone that's outside of you when you're seeing them interact with each other?
Yeah. Intimacy coordination, I love this aspect of my life. It's new. It's something that I've been working in for, I'd say, about 1.5 years now. And I'm so lucky to work with performers that are engaging in real sex. It's unsimulated, and it's a brave group of people here in New York. I work for an erotic theater, and these performers come to the space, and so many of them come in, and I say, great, let's talk boundaries. It's an individual one-on-one before we talk to the scene partner. I get these performers one-on-one, and we talk, what's your comfort level? Where are the boundaries, truly? People might have a boundary that they're willing to divulge. Well, I don't want anything in my butt. Okay, sure. But there's this pressure when you're a performer and you're in the sex positive space to say yes to everything. And that's something that I'm actively trying to rewrite in the community, is that we don't need to so quickly make that decision to say yes to things. I think a lot of folks in the sex positive community also feel that being a part of the community means they're just open to everything. And maybe you are curious, but if it involves your body and embodying an act, I want these performers, these people, to really consider somatically, what does it feel like as you navigate that? A big part of it is telling folks, a decision is not made in an instant. One of the big catchphrases in intimacy coordination is, of course, urgency is the death of agency. No one should be navigating a physical experience without agency. So that's the home base that we build, is that we talk about What does your body feel like when you're engaging in a sexual activity, right? We want to identify what stage fright feels like, but we also want to identify what coming up against a boundary feels like, because those are two different things. Stage fright, we know. It's like that giddy excitement. We go, okay, I can do this. I'm nervous. I might shit myself before I go out there, but I'm excited. But if you're coming up against a boundary and you don't know that it lives there, you want to watch for what the nervous system is telling you. And this is for anyone exploring the sexual sphere. You want to watch for a change in breath pattern that feels so limiting you might not recover from it. You want to feel, is my body temperature heightening, dropping to an extreme that feels like an alarm? Am I dizzy? Is there a nausea? Is there an alarm in my body? What is that alarm? Because that's when we pause. The other thing is people think when they start entering that feeling, everything has to stop and we have to cancel it and apologize and feel bad about canceling the encounter. That's not true. It's time for pause. So that's a lot of what the crossover is. It's a compassion for ourselves. And when I bring in the performers, the scene partners to talk together, we ensure that everyone has these working agreements that if one of us needs a pause, we're both taking it. No one's going to just continue the scene without the other one giving the go-ahead.
Yeah.
So, and then we talk about sexy stuff too. You know, obviously anyone with a penis seems to feel the pressure of the world on their shoulders, like Atlas, like, goodness, everything is about my erection. Will I be able to get hard? And not only that, can I sustain it? And not only that, can I give them a pop shot? So we have to eliminate that.
Yeah.
I love reminding penis performers that there's so much more to compelling sensuality and performing it than just penetration. Show me what your mouth can do when it is what is exploring. Show me what your hands can do as if they were your eyes. Show me what closeness and an exchange of body heat feels and looks like. That's what I want to see. If I go to an erotic theater, I can see people pound each other on the internet all day long. I want to see something real.
That's beautiful. Have you ever done an intimacy coordination scene for a BDSM sort of performance?
Yeah.
How is that different from something vanilla?
Yeah, absolutely.
With that level of intensity too.
Yeah.
Right? And oftentimes the desire to push, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes like the desire to bring out that intensity and the submissive oftentimes going to a subspace, and that feels very different than like, oh, I have a strict boundary here. How do you navigate some of the more complicated psychological states in a person?
I love that you're asking, and I so feel like you have answers to this as well.
I would love to hear yours. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah. So one of the things I like to do is make available a language that those two people or multiple people feel comfortable with. Yeah. Obviously, we all know the famous traffic light system of, yellow, I need to pause, red, this needs to come to a complete stop. Sure, that seems to be a foundation in kink play, right? But I like to make available language that the others in the scene might feel more comfortable with. Maybe there's a certain phrase or a certain word that they want to use that comes to them more naturally, more quickly. Maybe it comes from their own experience. My safe word personally is pine cone.
Pine cone? Where did that come from?
I don't know. It's just a weird word.
It is a weird word.
It's a weird word. And no, it's not the password to every single email I have. I'm not joking. It's not. Don't worry. That's just a safe word. I like to permit that language for them, first and foremost. So I like them to have the conversations about, this is what I really like. This is what I don't like. I think that's an important distinction to make, because it's imperative that we say, these are my no's. This is a hard limit for me. Speaking for myself, I pass out way too easily if you choke me. So if I'm doing a performance or a scene, you can have your hand there, but I'm going to ask you not to squeeze, right? So we talk about those absolute hard limits, because folks, if you're versed in the world of sex positivity and play parties and kink, ideally you already have an understanding of what your hard no's are. But then we got to build the container for what is available, right? This is when I ask people, well, what are you into? Because so often, if there's one lead, one dominant, and one that's kind of following or one submissive, the dominant, there's a pressure there to be leading the scene. Where are you taking this? Where are you going to go? It's so much easier to move through that seamlessly with joy, with confidence, and with a sense of play when you know what's available in the toy box. So for me, I want all parties involved to tell each other what they truly do enjoy. Even if it means, I like being debased in this way. I like being called this name. I like being punished in this way. We need to know those things. That's how we build the available experiences.
Yeah. I would love to kind of go back a little bit and talk about your experience with Naked News, which you did for 7 years. Yeah. What was that like? Reporting? And for people who don't know what Naked News is, and you should check it out, how would you describe it?
Naked News is a 20-plus year legacy web series that was on Playboy TV for almost 15 years, among many other satellite channels, and now it's just web-based. So Naked News was and has been just that, the news but naked. So the anchors, which are a cast of about 7 to 10 fabulous women who are excellent at reading a teleprompter on a green screen and disrobing at the same time. That's what the show, the core of it has always been. As the culture of reality TV evolved over the years and we started getting more, playful, experiential kinds of content. I think of things like there was a famous show hosted by Brooke Burke called Wild On, and I think that really changed a lot of the culture. MTV changed a lot of the culture. So these were more about sending an anchor to an experience and covering it. Naked News became more of that. So the years that I was there, I both produced and presented a lot of my own content, but much of it was about traveling. And much of it was about being on location, whether it's for AVN or any of the big porn awards, or whether it was a trade show about sex, health, and wellness. Sometimes it was a car and automotive trade show. Sometimes it was a fabulous vacation led by a very expensive swinger vacation group. I went on a number of swingers cruises, one through Alaska, one through Eastern Europe on the Danube. We went to Jamaica countless times to film at Hedonism. We were in Mexico constantly at Desire, or I think Temptation is the name of the other one. There was so much travel, and I loved that aspect of it. I loved the freedom that I had to come up with a concept and see it through. So I was very excited about featuring conversations with folks that were fundamental and movers and shakers in the sex positivity scene, So I wanted to talk to educators. I wanted to talk to doctors. I wanted to talk to people that led their own play parties, kink parties, that were doing something different or groundbreaking in this revolution of sex positivity. So I would have a lot of battles with my producer because he was very, committed to our largest audience and viewership, which was, the middle of the country. A lot of, let's just call them single white men that perhaps enjoyed a more familiar understanding of sex. I remember having some battles about whether or not a certain guest was attractive enough to be interviewed. I remember certain conversations perhaps being too edgy, being too queer, being too kinky. And that's ultimately part of my departure, was I did not want to play within those confines. I think it's important for the movement that we are a part of to be tackling subject matter that encompasses all of the lived experiences in our modern world of folks finding themselves and embracing their sexual identity. I don't want to be limited to someone who fits a certain mold. I want to talk to everyone.
Yeah. I think the tension with big productions is always so difficult, where they have this profit motive that they really need to hit.
Yeah.
Is there an episode that you really love then from Naked News that you think is encapsulates a lot of what you've been pushing for when you were in there?
Our entire series, we had about 5 episodes, maybe 3 or 4 episodes, In my mind, it's like 5 with all the BTS. The journey that we did with Luxury Lifestyle Vacations, which was the cruise through the Danube, was one of my favorite experiences. You know, on board that ship with us were some wonderful people in the lifestyle that let me interview them and talk to them about being a swinger and what it means to open up something as sacred as your monogamous relationship. But there were also some wonderful doctors and educators on board. I remember in particular, we had a woman that has a center in Florida called the Swan Center, and her name was Dr. Valerie Popple, and she works with adults with autism, helping them navigate their pursuit of pleasure and connection. And I remember sitting for that interview. I'm in bed with Dr. Popple. I'm naked. She's wearing something sexy. We're talking about her work, and it just hit me how beautiful a thing it is to dedicate your life to a community that is so often overlooked. I mean, now we have Love on the Spectrum on Netflix.
There's problems with, that show.
Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Now we're starting to consider as a culture that other people, other neurotypes might have a desire to pursue pleasure. This conversation I had with Dr. Popple was 6 years ago. It was a different world 6 years ago. And after that interview, I just stopped and had a good cry about it because I thought, my goodness, there are people doing these valiant, necessary efforts in the space. And I thought about, just how ignorant even I'd been navigating the world of bettering people's sexual lives. It's just, it has to encompass everyone. It really does. And her work to this day blows my mind. That was, we ended up having to cut up the interview so much because guess what? The middle American viewership didn't want to see a naked woman crying on camera. So unfortunately, most of that interview didn't air. But I hold that one dear because it really illuminated my mind. It really, it opened me up and I'm just in awe. I'm in awe.
I would love to, that's a topic that I haven't heard too much about. What's one lesson you learned from that conversation that really, really stuck with you around how autistic people might find pleasure or navigating that I think the majority of the population might not know about?
It's the grand connective tissue that spans all of us, regardless of where you lie on that spectrum. That, are you ready for it? Human beings are in pursuit of connection. Just because someone might present in a unique way or in a way that is unfamiliar to you does not mean that somewhere within them, they're not holding this core desire to connect with another person, to be in pursuit of pleasure, and how diverse pleasure might be, how diverse an experience it can be. Pleasure is me rubbing body lotion on myself at the end of a long, hot shower. Pleasure is also one hell of a great fuck. But pleasure, when you have someone define it for themselves, what is pleasure to you, they're able to find it. And if they have not found it yet, that's okay. You can help them along that journey. But what is a sensation that says, I feel good? Start there and then build off of it. Because maybe it will incorporate other people someday. Maybe someone else is going to lotion me. Because good Lord, that feels nice, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. One of my favorite videos to make right now is just, it is that after a shower, I just put lotion or oil on myself and I film it and get worshipped just by doing something so quotidian. And there's something so lovely about that. I can, subs don't get tired of it. This is also everything you're talking about is what gravitates me towards BDSM kink. I think I've always been kinky my whole life. Didn't have a language for it until, getting on FetLife in college and realizing, there's so many other people that I can connect with. And this is a community and it's really beautiful. Taking so much of what oftentimes is pain and darkness. And then we're turning it into something that's, really gorgeous and intimate between individuals or multiple individuals. Thanks for watching this episode of Uncensored with MX Tomie. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're a very good sub. And don't forget to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon, and all the other apps that I'm on. I'll see you on the next one.